Hey guys, welcome back. BDCKR here. We're back with Season 8, Episode 54 of our weekly Q&A videos and podcasts. If you're on YouTube, podcast links in the description. If you're on the podcast, you can't access on YouTube. You're not allowed. You're not allowed to make the jump. You have to stay on the podcast forever, and that's the only way you can consume our content from now on. Sorry, I don't make the rules. Anyways, our first question this week comes from Danielle Jones.
I think it's a conspiracy. If the only thing that they can't do is this thing that actually gets us ad revenue, then I think we're toast.
Oh, sorry, but you also have to support us on Patreon. If you're listening to this on the podcast right now, this is a legally binding contract. You have to give us money on Patreon.
If only that were true. But
yeah.
Yeah,
we could be making tens more of dollars.
Tens of cents.
We might make another buck or two if everybody on one support us on Patreon right now. Anyways, yeah, we don't need to plug it. And if you're watching this on YouTube, you're not allowed to support us on Patreon.
That's funny.
Our first comment comes from Danielle Jones, and this is related to the sort of ongoing discussion that we've had about COVID
and the pandemic. And I do want to point out that we pulled this from a more recent comment. We're going out of order a little bit because part of me, I'm almost a little bit afraid that if we don't do stuff soon enough, that it becomes no longer relevant.
That it becomes stale?
Yeah, it becomes stale.
Yeah. So, they say, just call anti-vaxxers disease spreaders or something. That'll make them think twice. And I like the sort of...
The sentiment?
I like the sentiment. I like the vibe that's being put out here.
Yeah, I agree. I think the general feeling of it is good. The problem is it's not exactly accurate. And here's the thing. I think when you're getting into a discussion with somebody who's against vaccinations, I feel a greater obligation to be precise and accurate, because if you don't, what happens is you end up getting into an argument of semantics where people can take, it's like that sort of like an emotional truth as opposed to an actual factual truth.
Yeah.
And so here's the thing. If you get a vaccine, it's not that you absolutely can't get infected and absolutely can't spread it, but your risk of spreading it is less because you're not symptomatic, you're not coughing and sneezing and doing all the stuff that spreads it, and you are less likely to less likely to be sick when you get it, but you're also less likely to get it, but it's not 100%.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody's still sort of a disease spreader, but they're just, anti-vaccination people are just better at it. And so they are more dangerous, which is sort of the underlying principle.
It was like when we were calling people super spreaders in super spreader events,
mm-hmm.
right? Except that almost makes you sound cool.
Super spreader.
I don't know. It's hard to say. I guess maybe it doesn't make you sound cool, but the word super in something normally has a positive connotation.
Tell me the joke at the restaurant. You do it better than I do.
Which joke at the restaurant?
So, Clark Kent.
Oh, yeah. This is a tweet. So this, it's not like we've ever had the highest production values, but this is a new low, I think, of just repeating a tweet, which is just Clark Kent's at a restaurant, and the waiter comes to his table, and he goes, would you like a soup or salad, sir? And he goes, a regular salad, please. And then he looks around and he shouts to the restaurant owner, just a regular salad for a regular man.
Yeah.
Super salad.
Okay.
Super salad for a super spreader.
Yeah, so the idea is good because, listen, just because you wear a seatbelt doesn't mean that you're never going to die in an accident. It doesn't mean that you're never going to be in an accident. But it does mean that you're more likely to survive it. And when you talk about something like this, which is a public health measure, then it has implications for a lot of other people. Mm-hmm. And so I think the underlying intent or the underlying feeling of this is right, that these people who aren't getting vaccinated are putting a lot of other people in danger. Mm-hmm. But it's not a binary kind of danger where they're 1 and we're 0.
Yeah.
It's that it's relative. There's nuance to it.
Yeah, for sure. Speaking of Superman, though.
Yeah.
Did we already talk about on the podcast that they're making Superman bisexual in the most recent
but that's... Okay, so to be clear, it's not Clark Kent, Superman.
It's Superman's son who is Superman. And what I think is, so what's funny about it is I don't particularly care at all. I'm not invested one way or the other because I don't read the comics. So whether or not in one comic Superman kisses a dude or not is not really, or like Superman's son or whatever. And that's the whole point, is that like the way that people act is really interesting for the comics, and that's what I was sort of looking at, is because the comic books reboot and do weird out of nowhere stuff with characters.
Listen,
24/7, constantly.
There was like back when Shaquille O'Neal was big.
Yeah,
they did that reboot with how many different Supermen? I don't even know what happened to all of them. There was the one Superboy Superman. There was the Machine one, which I think was the Shaquille O'Neal version.
Yeah,
and there was like it was everything.
So Shaq was Superman?
Well, it was somebody. It was. I think the character model was inspired by Shaquille O'Neal. I think Shaquille O'Neal might have played him in some sort of different medium.
Okay.
That wasn't the comic book.
Interesting. Yeah, but like, I remember in one of the Spider-Man collection books I had, there was one where they brought Gwen back from the dead for a short run, and there was a preface of like the writer apologizing for it being such a weird story.
Right.
And like tongue-in-cheek, like with them being drawn by the artists and stuff. And there's, you know, like Batman stories where Batman gets like hooked on like pills.
Yeah.
And, you know, everything else, right? If we talk about the game that we play with Injustice, there's like a million different universe versions.
Well, so many skins.
They're all very different, yeah. And there's so many things that you do with the character. So it's funny, because there's so many people who are talking about it with one opinion or the other. But I feel like you could say in like almost anything, you say, oh, in the like latest run, did you know this superhero X is doing Y? You know,
right.
And it's like, yeah, okay, who cares, right?
Right. It doesn't change any of the other stuff that's happened before. They're all good stories. If a character in a comic book is iconic enough that it lasts for decades, there's going to be different artists and different writers giving their own spin on things. I mean, so here's the thing: the absolutely best comic. Well, maybe I shouldn't say that. One of the absolute best comic book series I ever read was the Alan Moore run on Swamp Thing. Yeah, and what was pivotal to that was actually reimagining everything that gone before so that it tossed everything out the window and it opened it up to more interesting, crazy storylines that were brilliant.
And so that's and the only way that like a weird offhand change sticks for a character is if it works, or if that version of the character becomes sort of the definitive one. Right? The one that everybody thinks about. And Superman is well past his formative years as a character. Yeah. He's already been established in people's hearts and minds. And if anything's going to be Superman this generation, it's probably Henry Cavill, right?
You think
From the movies. I mean, maybe not for comic book people, but if somebody's going to be Superman to this generation, like now, who are getting their impressions of Superman at the same time as this bisexual or gay Superman is coming out, it would be the movies.
But I said there was also a Brandon Routh version, right?
I don't even know.
Yeah, he was that guy that was in Chuck the Bad Guy.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, okay. Interesting.
But you know what I mean? Like, that's far and away, I think, the biggest Superman right now. Yeah. Anyway, but so the funny thing is that they made this choice almost certainly for the reason of what happened, which is to stir up controversy. But what's weird to me is that it's even still like a discussion. That they make a random character like bisexual, and then everybody has to talk about it for a minute. Right. And it was interesting because I was talked about in a bunch of spaces with people that I know who would never send me anything about comic books, and who don't even know really like about this channel. We're like, did you see they made Superman bisexual? And then you read it and it's like, okay, well, technically Superman's son. And it's like, who? I don't understand why people care. And we're doing the same thing as we're talking about it. But it became such a big conversation, and it baffled me that people who are into comic books, I feel like if you're like a good faith fan, you should have that understanding of, well, whatever, right? Maybe they write it out, maybe they do something different with it, right? And even if you have an issue with something in a movie, I mean, if your issue is still this person has this sexuality, I think, you know, maybe pick a better hill to die on, buddy. But in general, if it's a movie, I get how that's a little bit more of a crystallization because there's so much more investment. It's so much bigger. It's so in the sort of public consciousness that you want them to get it right. You want whatever the picture you have in your head of what this hero should be. You want that to be what's up on the screen, because that's what, you know, the millions of people instead of the thousands of people are going to think of when they think of that hero. Right? But when it's like a comic book, I feel like the worst thing you can do, if you just want it to peter out, is to make a big stink about it.
Right. It's the Barbra Streisand effect.
Yeah.
Where something that you don't like, by bringing attention to it, you actually perpetuate it and make it a bigger deal than it was.
So I feel like, one, you shouldn't care because it's going to be done probably before you know it anyways, or, you know, get a different comic. And two, if you do care, then your best bet is to just shut up about it.
But it's effective, right? I mean, these are the kind of comic events, what you want to do. So the problem, I think, is like a lot of things. If the medium that you really enjoy has a small audience, and then something happens, or something is done to try to bring a bigger audience to it, and it's effective, it changes the landscape of what you like. And it's a little bit of that hipster vibe where I was here first, don't change my thing, don't harsh my jam. And you don't want to... Do you know what I mean? Like, it's that kind of...
I hear
you're looking at it, because it works. It's bringing attention, like you said, from friends of yours who have no interest in comics.
Yeah, they don't care at all.
Yeah.
But it's funny to me.
But they care about this.
They do.
This is
it.
It does bring attention. It does actually potentially reach a bigger audience.
Yeah, and it's like, it's the whole thing, because doing that sort of controversial stuff now, there's a weird balance, right, where controversy can actually be quite profitable now, because it's just a huge amount of free back and forth advertising. And when you're polarized, and there's one group who, and usually it's some right-wingers or alt-right, just like dicks, that are like burning their Nikes or whatever because of
or throwing their Keurigs out the window,
but burning their Nikes because what was that,
Colin Kaepernick?
Kaepernick and his kneeling during the anthem, where it's just like, you know, you're building brand loyalty on one side, and then on the other side, it's really, those destruction protests are funny. There was that H-Bomber guy video about it and all that discussion, where it was all these people who were destroying perfectly good merchandise and then having to go out and buy a new one, right? Like, the Keurig does not care if you destroy your Keurig, because they've already got their money from you. I guess, you know, to some extent there's the pods, right? But, like, it's a weird hill to say, I'm going to destroy all of my merch by this brand, because you've already paid for it. The only thing that you could do with that is sell it and have somebody else buy it secondhand, which is the only case in which, you know, that brand actually loses value potentially, because somebody's getting it secondhand. By destroying it, you're sort of doing the best thing for them.
Well, it's a capitalist society, right?
Yeah, it literally doesn't matter. But anyways, yeah, so it's just weird. But so Superman or Superman's son, and again, that's the other thing. It's like Superman's son. Who cares if it's OG Superman or Superman's son?
I do want to point out one thing that occurred to me. It dropped in my head, fell out, and just fell in again. Was this is something that comics have been doing forever.
Yeah,
to put some context onto it. And I don't know if this was maybe in the 70s, late 70s or early 80s. There was a comic series called Green Lantern, Green Arrow. Yeah. It was written by, I believe, Denny O'Neil and drawn by Neil Adams, who was one of the first guys that did that, sort of put that... If you see his art, you'll recognize it. He did that sort of realistic, heavily muscled, but really dynamic kind of stuff. Yeah. And one of them was Green Arrow's protege, Speedy, was a junkie. He was addicted to, I want to say heroin, because I remember the picture was of him with one of those things tightening up his arms to pop out his veins and injecting something, so that's probably heroin. Probably. They've been doing this forever, where they take something that's in the general consciousness, and they do a story about it. Yeah. So, nothing new. This is what comics have been doing for decades, probably before a lot of people who are listening to this were born. Speaking of capitalism. Okay, so we're going to get to questions eventually. So we already had one question, actually. So, and we were talking about this before, but I just saw a thread on Twitter. Yeah. And I wish I could have given credit
so
because I wasn't planning
today we really are just reading out other people's content.
Well, no, it's neat to me. Because, so I'll try to summarize more succinctly is that, you know how people complain that the era of music that they listened to was greater and something happened after.
Yeah.
And it's always that, like, and some people have the feeling that it's basically music that you were paying attention to in your late teens, early 20s, and that sort of age range is the music that matters most to you, that's always the best. Everything before that's kind of crap, everything after that's kind of crap. And they were making the case that it's actually, there is one generation that did get screwed a lot more, and that's people who are like late generation Xers or early millennials.
Yeah.
Because what happened was, and again, it tracks really well with my experience. It rings true, but I don't know how accurate it is that there was apparently some sort of new legislation that happened in 96 that allowed, that reduced limits on the ability of corporations to buy radio stations, like how many they could buy, where they could buy it. And so what happened was there was a corporation called Clear Channel, I think. Excuse me. Yeah, I don't have COVID. I got tested. So they bought a bunch of radio stations.
Yeah.
They consolidated a lot of stuff, including the programming. And so there was one guy who was responsible for a bunch of programming on a whole lot of radio stations, and that probably had an influence on the radio stations that weren't owned by Clear Channel.
Yeah.
And so that somewhere in 1999, a few years later, you lost a huge amount of diversity. There was a lot less influence of the local music scene on what was playing on the radio. So you ended up, like a lot of ecosystems that aren't, that get taken over by an invasive species, then you lose a huge amount of diversity.
Yeah.
So the example that they gave, or the statement that they made, was that if you'd gone to university or college in 1996 and you were surrounded by all this like college music radio that really was alt rock, like just a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
That when you came out in 2000, it would have felt like you'd been in the world after the asteroids had hit millions of years ago, and you thought, where the hell did all the T-Rexes go?
Yeah.
That, stuff like sort of folk, Lilith Fair stuff, like female rock, folk, indie stuff, was huge for a few years, and then died out after 99. Like and people were commenting, yeah, that's what happened in country radio, and that's what, like, just a bunch of stuff like that was really interesting.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of neat that despite what makes a lot of sense in that, everybody thinks their music growing up was the best and everything after that's been kind of junk, people who are in that age range really have a legitimate complaint, and it was killed by legislation. Yeah. And so it really sort of brings home the idea to me that unfettered capitalism can be really, really bad, and that's why there needs to be some control.
Yeah.
And that that music really has changed. It's not just that. I guess we're listening to 80s music. To me, all right, so 80s music is 40 years ago. When I was listening to 80s music, when it was 80s, when it was like current music, we weren't listening to 1940s music.
No,
it just wasn't happening.
Yeah.
I don't know. Again, it made me think a lot.
The ability to save it and access music is totally different now too. That's the interesting thing is now is I don't know. Obviously, it's going to be pop, right? And so the stuff that's going to define what we look back and think about this generation of music is going to be, like Taylor Swift. It's going to be, a lot of rap, right? It's going to be what gets radio play right now.
So but you're talking about the original masters, I totally agree with you. But there's a lot of music that's influenced by 80s music. There's a lot of music that's being sort of redone.
Yeah.
And there was no 40s music that was being redone. Like back then, you could still listen to music. There was vinyl, there was whatever. You had it wasn't as easy access, but you had access to it. So the musicians that were influenced by it could have easily re-recorded some of the songs. They just never did.
That's true.
So it's interesting to me.
Yeah, but because with modern music, there's just so much of it. There's a huge volume, and that's why, like, you can not like pop music or whatever genre of music,
right?
But I feel like we're probably the best it's ever been for finding, if you like something specifically, finding exactly what you like. And even if you want like old niche music, right? There's people who are doing like jukebox covers and all of whatever else. Even if you're looking for modern music in the style of X, Y, or Z, even if it is older stuff, I feel like right now, and I assume that that's going to continue until some event happens, is that whatever the most recent sort of era is going to have the highest volume and probably also one of the highest diversities. Just because now, you know, if you have $100, you can post music on Spotify.
Right. So I think the streaming is actually sort of a counterbalance to what was a not exactly a death knell, but a really destructive event in radio.
Yeah.
Because radio used to be the way that you would find new music.
Yeah, but I think the money's way worse now.
Yeah, it quite likely is. I mean, you know, money in general has been...
Yeah, but for the music industry, streaming has absolutely sucked, I think, most of the money out of it. It's the same with YouTube, right? Where, like, a handful of Patreon supporters can give us, you know, all of our ad revenue for thousands of views a month is like, you know, like one or two Patreon supporters, depending on what tier they're at. It's the same thing for music, where like Spotify just sucks the money out, and I don't even know how much more Spotify's making. I don't know what like the breakdown is, what percentage they are, but Spotify is working at volume, and artists are working at, you know, orders and orders of magnitude lower. So even if Spotify's only taking like a half cut, they're making ridiculous money, and then each artist is making like nickels.
Right. So we're talking about two different things. One is the diversity of music, and the other is the income streams.
Yeah.
And they're both, I guess, the diversity is benefiting from the streaming.
Yeah.
But the income for the artist is taking a big tank because of streaming.
Yeah, diversity, convenience, and access. There's a lot of benefits to the consumer, but there's not a lot of benefits to... Well, there's some benefits to the artist. I mean, talk about Bug Hunter, right? He's always my go-to because I get the closest to inside baseball from any musician talking to him, because we chat on a semi-regular basis.
Right.
And the
You want to plug him? Give him a plug.
Yeah, Bug Hunter. Go to Bug Hunter on Spotify. Dear McCracken is his most popular song, I think. One. But maybe Disco in the Panic Room might also be creeping up there. That tends to be pretty popular. He's got a million songs that I like.
Dear McCracken, though, start there. I think that's an easy entry point.
It's a popular entry point. Yeah, Bug Hunter. Listen to him on Spotify. He's great. Potentially might be doing a stream of a project of his at some point in the future, like streaming on this channel. So stay tuned maybe for that. Who knows? Maybe not, but maybe. Yeah, and so the money is paltry just from the streams.
Yeah.
And so you gotta sort of figure out how to make money in other ways. You got to convert your fans into either buying merch or this, you know, albums or whatever. You can't just rely on streams to make a living unless you want a ridiculous number of like views. You need a lot of streams to make anywhere close to sort of real money from it, even more so than YouTube, I think.
Right.
But you can also get recommended, and so Spotify, I think, was the main way that most people found Bug Hunter, is the way that I found him. And so the whole thing of most people coming in from Dear McCracken is he had a song and he made it, and it got big, and it wasn't getting, you know, a huge amount of play in other places, and it's spread, and he's, you know, slowly climbing up there in monthly listeners just from having good music and being out for long enough, and just sort of I don't know if it's fair to call it the snowball effect per se, if it's you know, increasing at that rate, right? Because I think the sort of perception of the snowball effect is it gets big fast. I hope for his sake that it gets big fast, but more importantly, it's just sort of you know, you pick up a fan base, and that fan base likes your stuff.
I think that dog has an opinion.
Yeah, the dog wants you to stream Bug Hunter on Spotify, and then go to bughunterbug.com and then buy some merch. On a separate note, Bug has some really good merch. I think he has better merch than a lot of bands do, because he's got some really unique stuff there. And so the whole reason why I sort of ended up messaging him in the first place was to get a little bit of custom stuff done on an order where he sells lyric sheets of his songs, where he'll handwrite in like a black marker or black pen, so where not marker, but like a felt tip like pen.
So I want to talk about lyrics, which is funny.
Yeah.
Is in the old days, finding the real lyrics of a song was hard.
Yeah.
So sometimes liner notes for an album would have the lyrics, and if they did, then you'd have a definitive version.
Yeah.
A lot of times they didn't. So you'd be figuring out what the words are. So all those times where people it's wrapped up like a deuce. When people think it sounds like wrapped up like a douche, and so there were sources. There were like every once in a while you'd run into this magazine, even like a foreign language magazine, that would have the lyrics for popular songs. Yeah, and sometimes they'd be wrong.
Yeah. Oh,
but it was there was no other real way. I guess if you're a musician, you bought the music and it had the lyrics to it, but a lot of times you just wouldn't know what the song lyrics were. That
happened recently to a Doja Cat song on Genius. Somebody put it in on Genius wrong. And I was talking with a friend, and they said the lyric in the wrong way. And I was like, is that it? I don't think that's it. And then I looked it up, and then I found it on Genius their way. And then I saw a tweet, when I looked it up, I saw a tweet by Doja Cat saying who effed up, or I forget what she said exactly, but it was like, who messed up the song lyrics on Genius? And then I think they fixed it. But it's interesting. Yeah, that's it's a
Mondegreen.
Yeah. But that's an interesting artifact of sort of pop culture too, because I think there was a lot of memes. That's like a thing. I recently watched a video about it.
But you don't really, if you didn't know about the history, you wouldn't really have a sense of that, because everything is so easily accessible now.
Yeah,
including lyrics to songs.
Yeah,
and you can find the definitive version on the actual artist's channel.
Yeah, it's true. Bug Hunter posts the lyrics to all of his music.
Right, and he sells you handwritten versions of the lyrics of a song,
which is fun. If you like a song, it's very cool that you can go and say, I haven't seen a lot, maybe it's a thing in spaces that I'm not in, but I never gone and saw merch before that was like the artist like taking it and like hand writing that out, and it's sort of like it's sort of cool. One step above being signed. It's very cool. Anyways, Stream Bug Hunter, getting to our second comment of the week. This one comes from Carlo G, and they say, totally unrelated question, have you guys tried Pokemon Unite?
I have not.
And I have not either, but some of my friends have, and they liked it when they played on the Switch. It's on mobile, right? Is one of the things.
Is it like a classic Pokemon game?
No, it's absolutely not a classic Pokemon game. It's a Pokemon MOBA. Multiplayer online battle arena. Okay, so I don't know if you know MOBAs at all. League of Legends is a MOBA. Dota 2 is a MOBA. Smite is a MOBA. So you're
the last Pokemon game. I didn't even play Pokemon Go. The last Pokemon game I played was probably Pearl. It was the duology is Pearl and Diamond, right?
Are you sure that was the last one you played?
I don't think
you must have played one of those after. Because I played up to X and Y, and I have to say I had been increasingly disappointed with Pokemon games for a long time, and I know part of it is just you sort of grow up and your sensibilities change. And I know that if there was like games that I came back to now, I probably would not enjoy them nearly as much as I did when I was a kid. I remember Pokemon Ranger, the one where you draw circles around them.
Oh, right. I never played
to be really compelling. And there's a lot of games that I remember really loving as a kid that if I came back to now would probably feel a lot more crummy. But even going from one of the newer Pokemon games to the older Pokemon games, there's a lot of stuff that they, updated and ostensibly improved, right? It looks better, you maybe get more freedom of movement, you get better graphics, you get cooler sort of overworld mechanics of actually navigating and moving through the world as a Pokemon trainer outside of the battles. Right. But it just got so easy. It got so, like, almost unforgivably easy, because I remember you trying to catch a Zapdos.
Yes.
And having it at, like, 1 HP and like status effect, and throwing Ultra Balls at it over and over and over and over again. And I remember in like X or Y, there was this dude, I was still pretty young at this point, but on like this school like playground, maybe in middle school or high school, I don't remember how old I would have been at that time, but who like was having trouble catching Kyurem, which to be fair was a like during the game legendary. It wasn't like an after game one like Zapdos was, but having trouble catching it. And being able to, in the space of like a single like 45-minute lunch period, not only catch him, but catch him with a Pokeball. He was like, I can catch him. And I'm like, I probably got you. And I got him with a Pokeball just because I thought it looked nicer.
Yeah, it does. Aesthetically, it does look nicer to catch it with a regular Pokeball. But
yeah, nothing like catching somebody really cool and having them stuck in a heal ball forever and just looking kind of lame.
Yeah. Yeah, well, yeah, I still remember that because the mechanic was, like you're saying, when they're low health, when they have a status effect, and it's been longer in the fight, I guess depending on the effect of the ball, right? Certain balls are better if you've been in the battle longer or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember those struggles with the legendaries at the end. Yeah.
Brutal.
Yeah.
And so the new Pokemon games are just a little too easy. And Pokemon Unite, does not fall into any of those pitfalls because it's like a multiplayer game. I like that they're doing more stuff with the Pokemon IP. I think Pokemon is well beloved by a lot of people, and it's easy. It's actually very well liked by neurodivergent people, specifically. Very commonly, and which is interesting because I believe, I'm like 90% sure that the creator of the game was actually autistic, and that the way that it was designed, I mean, it's a great game, obviously appeals to everybody, but that there's a certain neurodivergent kinship where it scratches the right kind of itches for the right kind of neurodivergent people. Which makes sense. I mean, as that little sort of cozy collecting game that has the right amount of like deep strategy, but also can be very light and can be appealing to little kids, right? And that sort of idea of
that would be me.
A bug catching.
That was me, the little kid that was playing with you to try to get the different legendaries, and depending on what the starting Pokemon was.
And it's very Injustice has very clearly scratched a similar itch for us,
right?
In terms of collecting and leveling up and everything. It's just like most mobile games, stripped away all of the extra context,
right?
And just brought it to the very minimum grind and collect and improve loop.
So you know what? Why don't we make room for one more question that's actually 3 questions, where people were answering something or responding to something we talked about like a few weeks ago in terms of where people were coming from.
Yeah, so Casey says, bro, you guys got the potential to switch to other games and stream and upload. I've been watching you guys since I was a sophomore in high school. I'm 23 now. I support it all, but just try to upload other mobile games of console and even PC. You guys got it. Great content overall, though. And then Wild G says, hello, bro. I just want to say I have been a subscriber since 2017. Been 4 years so far. I still find it impressing how you still play the game in 4 years' time. What motivates you to play? Nice video, by the way. And Miguel Velazquez says, been watching this channel since I was 9. Now I'm a senior in high school, and I've been loving this channel since then. Hope you guys are doing well. And I like the last one because I'm assuming they mean since they were 9, but it could mean that they've been watching since they were 9 and they've only been enjoying since they were a senior in high school, which is right now. So I like the idea that they've been watching for years and years and years and only started enjoying it in the last like 4 months or so.
They were really hopeful.
Yeah.
And then finally, it paid off.
Dedicated, they stuck with it. It was like a show that has a really bad first season.
First, like how many seasons? Sorry? Like
years.
First 8 seasons?
Yeah.
First
I know.
7
Maybe
seasons?
in a couple years from now, it'll actually be, pretty good.
So it's interesting because it's made up such a big chunk of their lives. But all right, so can I ask you a little bit then about the reason why I put these questions on our list was you had a decidedly unique experience with this because you started this. We started doing this when you were really young.
Yeah.
And so a big chunk of your life has been where you've been able to identify, big chunk of your conscious life actually has been where you've been able to identify saying, oh yeah, I got a YouTube channel. It's not that popular, but it's okay. I make a bit of pocket money out of it.
Yeah, it's weird because it feels like it hasn't been as long as it has, and I think that speaks to the fact that we've just done what we've wanted for as long as we've wanted.
Right.
And so it's been pretty, I'd say pleasant. And the further that we've done it, it's become, I think there was times earlier where it was more exciting, potentially, just because there was a million things going on, and there would be something, and we'd have to get to a video, like, that night, or,
right.
like, we wouldn't want to, like, we wouldn't want to lose an extra hour, because there'd be something that was important, and then we'd post it, and then if it was, like, a new glitch, we'd watch, like, 20 comments come in like, the first minute. Right. Or
we would literally have hundreds of comments a day.
And it would be, and so it was really, like, popping off. There was a lot of stuff going on. It was a view, counter piling high. And now, I don't know how many views our last bunch of videos have gotten. I check every once in a while as, like, a sort of a big bash, and I go, oh, yeah, that's pretty small. that seems about right, you know.
Right.
And I don't really go back and look, and we just sort of do it, and you know, I check the comments and I go, oh, you know, the person said something here, person said something there,
Right.
and I appreciate it. But it's also become a lot less stressful and a lot easier. It's a lot more enjoyable and a lot more fun and just simple and light to do. So we're glad that people still like us because we're stuck in our way enough and we're doing it just exactly the way that we want enough that it would be very unmotivating to make any changes if nobody did like what we're doing now. We would just probably stop doing it and pick a better way to spend our time. But so we're happy for anybody who's stuck around, and it's weird because we really have not been designing this to be a channel for people to grow with. We haven't been doing anything except for just doing what we wanted. So if there's people who have started watching this at the right time and it's continued to be the right time in their lives, I think that's really cool, actually.
I agree. I think it actually, it is. It's funny that you mentioned that too, because I'd forgotten how much of an adrenaline rush it was when there were these external forces. So when there was new stuff happening, it was driven by what was happening. Now, I mean, less is happening, but it's driven by what holds our interest. So every once in a while we'll have a gameplay video. But it'll be because we're playing around with it and we have time to really do things and not feel... I can't tell you the number of videos that have been lost over time because the situation changed. Something was nerfed or something was boosted or it just no longer became relevant.
And now it's just whatever.
It is very liberating.
So it's a very different experience. That's like I have a friend who writes for a online comic book and like fandom like publication. And they his views on articles are almost entirely dictated by topic because he's not huge right now. He's not like a titan of the industry. He's in university doing something part-time, so that he can get some money and build a resume. Not to say that he's not doing cool stuff, right? And he specifically is. He's interviewed some really cool people. He's interviewed Brennan Lee Mulligan, who's somebody I'm quite a fan of, a couple times.
That's is he Scott? I'm thinking. No, I'm not thinking of that.
No.
Okay.
He's an internet comedian and professional DM and other stuff for Dungeons and Dragons. And the Letterkenny guys. He's interviewed the Letterkenny like actors and creators, which done some really cool stuff. But the views are almost entirely based off of whatever the topic is, because that's just the type of stuff that it is right now. And that was a lot of what our channel was, where we had some good stuff. We did as much as we could to make it good, right? But a lot of it was based off of just sort of the whims of the market. And now we're actually smaller than the views of the topic because we've narrowed down into a type of content. I mean, if you look at it, there's other Injustice 1 YouTubers who are doing better than us consistently on videos and content now. And
are there?
Absolutely. I don't follow, but every once in a while I'll look it up, and there's totally other people who are still doing this kind of stuff and getting, thousands of views, getting closer to what we were in our heyday on our average non-glitch video. But I would not want to be on that grind with them. I'm happy to be exactly where we are and be, I don't even know what we are, like a second tier or like a third tier YouTube Injustice channel now. Used to be a pretty big fish in a pretty, whatever size pond. And now we're just doing our own thing.
So big-ish in a small pond, and now we're as the pond shrivels up into a little like puddle of water.
We're even tinier.
We're tinier.
Yeah.
And that's okay. It's actually not bad. I think it's a neat... I find it, in a lot of ways, it's like what I enjoy about panels at a convention. It's a neat excuse to have a conversation that's sort of guided and sort of not. And we get to ramble a little bit. And we're resting a little bit on the experience that we've already have in this game, so that we don't have to do a huge amount of experimentation like we did before every single video.
So anyways, there we go. that's it for the week. Very navel-gazy again, but we're allowed to do that because nobody's stopping us. And, nobody cares nearly as much as we do. And so to finish up, we have some shout-outs. I'd like to give a shout-out to Eliza Glizzy Goat Caton. She once fell asleep in an Uber with 3 strangers while holding a street dog.
What?
A street dog, like a hot dog that you buy off the street.
Oh, okay. So I
From
just.
a cart.
But does that? So Uber, there's. I thought Uber services.
Uber Pool.
Oh, I just don't use Uber. Okay, so you Uber Pool is acting like a mini bus.
I guess so. It's acting like a ride share. It's acting like one of those like vans that you can take, right, or whatever.
So
I don't know.
what I'm picturing is holding a hot dog and
dozing off.
like what's that show? Trailer Park Boys, where Julian, he gets in crash no matter what happens. He's still got the drink in his hand. So did she lose the street dog, or is it?
I don't know. So this shout out was brought to you by her. She wrote this one, and so she just gave this one to me whole cloth. As part of a batch of them. So I don't know the exact context. We'll have to ask her. I'll send this to her, and
okay, I
see what happened to the street dog. And this shout out was brought to you by being tired while holding street meat. Go ahead, take a little nap. And that's that. And we'd also like to give a huge thank you to the lovely folks who support us on Patreon, which I'm assuming is now everybody who's listening on the podcast too, and none of the people who watch this on the YouTube. If you've followed my lead at the start on the YouTube.
The big thank yous to Victor Gomez, Consul Peasant, and Edwoon at the top tier last word, Sinemac and Mohammed Albshaiti at the Your Message Here tier, Shawn Farrell, Daniel Simonson, Aaron Maule, Michael DeVries, Brandon C., Irvin Ruiz, and Eddydoo at the credited level, and Chris Wolf, Scarlet Danny, Awesome Gamer 241, Pavu RS, Gavin Malott, and Isfar E at the gratitude level.
Thank you so much for your support, and we'll see you next time.
Komoda.